Me apaixonaram papo desde liceu. Pra morir bué, minha vida, tudo que precisa. Enamorado tudo é tão perfeito. Mulher minha vida é boa, única que completa. Só botiga já basta, que quer mais nenhum. Mulher minha vida é boa, única que completa. Só botiga já basta, que quer mais nenhum. Na 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 na. Que quer mais nenhum, mulher que acabou. Ué, ué, ué. Mulher de minha vida, só que sabe a
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And it is 9 o'clock, Africa World Hour. It is on this Tuesday, the 14th of October. Warm welcome to you. 60 minutes of the very latest news will tell you what's happening in and around your world, bring you the voices, the faces, and of course the perspectives that matter. That's your perspective. So please do reach out to us. Our WhatsApp number is +27 63 9126 if you want to share your perspectives on some of the stories that we're covering.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
We start with this. Zambia has begun a mass registration of voters for its 2026 August general elections. The mass registration of voters is set to capture close on 4 million eligible persons as the 23 million populated country heads for the general polls next August. Channel Africa's Zambia correspondent Arthur Davis Scopo explains the process of elections in Zambia from Lusaka.
First of all, the period is too short. When you look at the civic education and sensitization around this process of registration, information has been very scanty. But we are trying our best as Patriotic Front to encourage our members, supporters, and general communities across the country to register. The registration of our people in terms of them getting their IDs, their national registration cards, which is a prerequisite to you registering for voters. The northern part and eastern part of the country, half of the country was more or less defranchised by way of supplying less materials to have that actualized.
And South Africa's health minister says he's confident that the rollout of antiretroviral medication, lenacapavir, will greatly help combat South Africa's HIV and AIDS epidemic. The long-acting HIV prevention injection, which is endorsed by the World Health Organization, is administered twice a year. Clinical trials have shown it to be highly effective, providing almost complete protection against HIV infections when administered as recommended at 6-month intervals. It is expected to be rolled out in April next year over 300 public clinics in high infection areas across the country. Motsoaledi was speaking at a roundtable on the country's readiness to roll out the drug.
Lenacapavir represents a true breakthrough in prevention science and service delivery. This 6-monthly dosing schedule has the potential to overcome many of the barriers we have seen with daily oral PrEP. It offers greater discretion, convenience, and likely much better adherence for users, especially for people who struggle with taking a pill every day or making frequent clinic visits.
A civil defense official in Gaza says at least 7 people have been killed by Israeli forces in 2 separate incidents. A Hamas spokesperson called the incidents a violation of the ceasefire. The second phase of U.S. President Donald Trump's peace plan remains uncertain, but Trump says he will decide what he thinks is right on whether there should be a 2-state solution in the Middle East. UNICEF spokesperson Ricardo Perez says rebuilding will be a huge effort.
Fixing and starting to rebuild the infrastructure that was destroyed, the lives of children that have been absolutely affected in a very destructive way. They've lost parents, they've been orphaned, they've lost loved ones, they've lost their homes, their schools, they've been killed and maimed at a scale that we haven't seen recently in many conflicts. The task is colossal.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he'll decide what he thinks is right on whether there should be a 2-state solution in the Middle East. As we've mentioned yesterday, he signed the first phase of his Gaza peace deal that's seen hostages and prisoners released today. Israeli forces said they killed 5 Palestinians who'd gotten close to them in Gaza City, and inter-Palestinian clashes have continued. The BBC's Yolanda now reports.
This ceasefire is still at such a fragile stage. In fact, guns not silent across Gaza because there seem to have been more of these deadly shootouts between Hamas and rival gangs to the east of Gaza City. And also there's footage showing Hamas gunmen apparently executing several men in the street after Hamas accused them of collaborating with Israel. And that is really underscoring how there is this security vacuum that has opened up in Gaza, and Hamas is back there reasserting its authority, and that is extremely worrying for President Trump's 20-point plan because it foresees the disarming of Hamas.
And finally, there are mixed reactions to Cameroon's opposition candidate Issa Chiroma declaring victory in the country's October 12 presidential election. Issa Chiroma Bakare, a longtime ally and former spokesperson for Cameroon President Paul Biya, is mounting a strong challenge to his former boss, claiming to have defeated him. In a speech late yesterday, the 76-year-old former minister declared victory and urged Biya, who at 92 is the world's oldest serving head of state. His candidacy has electrified voters who are clamoring for change after more than 4 decades of Biya's rule. Moki Kinzega reports from Yaoundé.
You know, Issa Chiruma Bakari was minister for 20 years under the government of Paul Biya. He served as government spokesperson. So he knows the house, he knows where he has been serving for a long time, and he's counting on his knowledge. Some people who support Biya, who are also not happy with his long stay in power, who may stand behind Bakari, and secondly, counting on the Cameroonian people to protect him. He himself said it, that as he's ready to defend his victory, he should be protected by the Cameroonian people. The Minister of Territorial Administration said Bakari has defied, and even said if the Minister of Territorial Administration thinks he's strong enough, bold enough, and has enough support, he should come and arrest him.
1 hour, 1 continent, 1 voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
It's 7 minutes past 9. In just a moment, we'll tell you the latest on what is happening on the ground in Madagascar. And of course, we will also report on the latest in Cameroon. But for now, reactions have been streaming in from various health stakeholders following the suspension of the head of Department of Health and Wellness in South Africa's Gauteng province. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi suspended Lisiba Arnold Malotana with immediate effect on Tuesday. Lesufi said the suspension is part of an ongoing assessment of officials, but it is alleged that the suspension relates to the country's special investigating unit work in his department, which fingered him in alleged corruption and maladministration. Sisi Sekhalo reports.
South Africa woke up to the news of the suspension of Health and Wellness HOD in the Gauteng province. The Gauteng government could not give reasons for his specific suspension, but needless, they expressed that they support the work of the country's law enforcement agencies. Elijah Mhlanga, is the Gauteng government spokesperson.
This action taken by the Premier is part of an ongoing assessment of officials, the work they do, the monitoring of targets, as well as their conduct. As a province, we remain committed to upholding the highest standards of accountability and ethical leadership. And at the same time, we remain steadfast in our commitment to root out maladministration. We'll continue to monitor the work done by our senior officials, and as and when the need arises, action will be taken.
The Democratic Alliance Party in the Gauteng province says it is disappointing that the Gauteng Health and Wellness HOD will still be drawing a salary. They insist that he should have been fired instead. DA spokesperson for health in the Gauteng provincial legislature, Madeleine Hickling, says the suspension comes a little too late.
Let's put it this way. He is a non-performing head of department. He has had high-level protection from Panyaza Lesufi, the Premier of Gauteng, for a very long time, despite the fact that his name has been linked to numerous scandals and an SIU investigation. And the SIU investigation is into allegations that he received more than 10 million rand, a bribe to approve a contract together with other officials in his department. His lifestyle audit has not been made known to either the members of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, the Health Portfolio Committee, or in fact the citizens of Gauteng. We now believe that he has failed that lifestyle audit, and it's on those grounds that he was put onto immediate suspension.
The National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, NEHAWU, have welcomed the suspension. They say the move comes just in the wake of their march to the departmental offices recently, where they were demanding change. Gauteng Secretary of NEHAWU in the country, Mzikai Setshontshe, says they believe the move may herald a new dawn for the department. He adds that someone must be held accountable for the rot that has been happening in that department.
It's our view that this decision by the Premier is in line with what we demanded as NEHAWU, that we demand decisive action that shows that the government is serious about fighting corruption, maladministration, making sure that the people of Gauteng who deserve better health care, get what they deserve from the department in the form of the services that they deserve. That money that is designed to help communities must be used for those communities and nothing else. That the provision of health care must be treated with urgency. So the decision by the Premier for us is a very important development that is welcome to us and must lead to that department moving in the right direction and correcting all those things that were highlighted in our memorandum.
Meanwhile, an acting HOD has been appointed by the name of Dr. Darion Barclay. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekgalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa.
At 12 minutes past 9, let's tell you about the latest in Madagascar. Political tensions there reaching a dangerous tipping point. Army Colonel Michael Randrianirina announcing that the military has taken control of the island nation just moments after Parliament voted to impeach President André Rajoelina. The announcement made in front of the ceremonial President Palace in the capital Antananarivo comes amid weeks of mass anti-government protests and deep political unrest. Regional eyes are now fixed on Madagascar, with the Southern African Development Community Community, or SADC, and the African Union facing mounting pressure to intervene and help steer the nation back towards stability and democratic order. We speak now to Professor Ishmael Teledzani, Director, Organ on Politics, Defence and Security Affairs at the SADC Secretariat, to speak to us more about this. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Professor. Firstly, what reports are you getting out of Madagascar in terms of what the situation is?
Tsepiso, good evening, and good evening to your viewers. The reports we are getting from Madagascar is the same that you are getting. We get all the reports, unfortunately not in a normal situation where you will get a note verbal from the government. At the moment, we are only getting reports from the media and from our early warning centers who are collecting information.
So what is your assessment of what has happened in Madagascar so far, with the president not only dissolving parliament, appointing a new prime minister, but the growing protests, political tensions, and what have been injuries and killings on the ground too?
Yeah, Tsepiso, unfortunately, this has been going on for some time. It's weeks now. It started with this Gen Z, what we call Gen Z. And what transpired today really proved that we need to move in as SADC and the African Union. And I know many people would argue that we should have moved much earlier than we are thinking now. We were actually allowing the internal processes, allowing the country to exhaust all other internal processes before we could move in as SADC. Yes, indeed. What has transpired today and the day before and yesterday and other days, it's a clear indication that the region needs to move in and assist the Republic of Madagascar.
But Prof, is it not a contradiction in terms if you say we acknowledge that we should have moved in and intervened much earlier, but we were allowing the internal processes to unfold? So which one is it? Does SADC believe that it should have stepped in earlier, or you believe the situation that is unfolding now is a result of you acknowledging the sovereignty of a nation that has ultimately fallen apart, fallen to pieces?
So remember, before you move in, you keep on getting information from the country. And if the country give you the assurance that all is in order, I have everything under control, you can't insist in moving in. And those were the reports we were receiving, that everything is still under control. So unfortunately, there is absolutely nothing that we could have done as SADC.
You're saying you're receiving this information from President Andry Rajoelina, who himself is, dare I say, the protagonist in the violent upsurge that we've seen from protesters. And as you say yourself, that it's a situation that has been ongoing for quite a while now.
Yeah, but look, there was no reason for us not to believe, and you rightfully pointed out right in the beginning, as SADC, we believe in the sovereignty of all our member states. And when we inquire from our member state and we get the assurance that all is in order, there is no reason for us not to believe them. And that's where we found ourselves now.
Okay. And Prof, you seem to, the way you're responding, to think that I'm on the attack, but I'm merely asking you based on the statements that you're making. And I'll go back again to the question that I asked initially, that is, are you either acknowledging that you went in too late, because you're saying you accept the criticism? So on what basis do you accept that criticism if you're now saying that, well, we had no reason not to believe President Rajoelina when he said all is well?
No, it's never too late. It is the right time now to move in, given that the situation has escalated to where it is today. Whereas if we had to move in 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and how do you move in when the owner of the house tells you that there is nothing wrong in the house, all is well? So we're waiting now to move in and see how best we can assist the Republic of Madagascar in collaboration with other role players, the stakeholders such as the the African Union.
Okay, so what framework would you then intervene as SADC? Because there certainly is criticism against you that you definitely did not act in time, that when you were in Madagascar for a summit, when the comments made by President André Rajoelina, who was saying that he himself will preside over democratic principles in an environment where already activists, protesters and ordinary citizens were saying that there are no conditions for what would be democratic principles where human rights are being upheld.
So if you remember, we have been here before with the Republic of Madagascar, and your question as to what are we going to do, the only rational thing to do is to use our peace and security structures within the organ, and one of them being the panel of elders when the situation is like this, where the African Union call it the panel of the wise. So the best thing would be to send, and that's what SADC is going to do in few days to come, is to send the panel of elders to engage various stakeholders on the ground. There are many actors in this in Madagascar. So the panel of elders will have to go and engage all those actors and come up with a consensus.
And who are you going to engage? Do you have an idea, given the fact that you're saying you only have the information which, you know, is coming from the media, that you're not getting a note about from anybody? Who are you then intending to speak to? Your understanding who's in control of who's running Madagascar?
Yes. Thank you. Tsepiso, normally when you send the panel of elders, you will first send the secretariat with what we call the MRG group. So what we are going to do when we get to the ground for the 2-3 days maybe is to engage with the whoever is in government, could be foreign affairs, and then we will determine before the panel of elders arrive, who are we going to meet? So to establish the stakeholders. Some of the stakeholders might come voluntarily, others might have to be consulted to see if they will meet the panel of elders, because the panel of elders is a very senior structure. It's comprised former heads of states, so you don't want them to go there and run around and finding out who they have to meet. You have to send the team earlier on to determine who is going to form part of negotiations before the panel of elders arrive.
And what would SADC's approach be? And I'll go back to how SADC has handled the ongoings in Madagascar in the past. In fact, there has been a letter written by former president, some signatories about SADC's role and what they see as you legitimizing President André Rajoelina and pointing to the 2011 roadmap. There seems to be an idea that you acted far more swiftly in 2009 when he intervened militarily than you are doing so now.
Yeah, but Tsepi, remember, and I'm glad you mentioned the roadmap. And remember when President Chisano was in Madagascar, and in the end, after meeting all the stakeholders, they came up with this roadmap. But at the end of the day, it's not for SADC to implement the roadmap. We leave them with a tool. The roadmap was a tool for the Republic of Madagascar. And it was up to the Republic of Madagascar then to use this tool moving forward. And I think if the tool was used correctly, would have been far in Madagascar.
But you seem to divorce yourself from that role. When you say use correctly, would you say that SADC has been consistent in the manner that it's dealing with Madagascar, has been dealing with Madagascar, as opposed to, say, Zimbabwe, or even in Lesotho?
What difference are you referring to?
No, I'm asking
what happened.
I'm asking a question. I'm asking, do you believe that you have been consistent?
I think we have been. And the other thing that you must also understand, Tsepi, is that you are dealing with different leaderships, and when people are in leadership positions, they do things differently. Back in those days, there could have been a different leadership of the organ, maybe a different leadership of SADC, and we have a different leadership now which maybe have a different approach compared to the then leadership.
So is it the person that is at the helm that determines how SADC approaches a conflict in a country or tensions in a country? Is that what you're saying?
It is the person at the helm, but with the support of the SADC Secretariat. As the Secretariat, we provide advice to that person.
So then how does SADC then view its role as a regional player in such power disputes? Because it would seem to me that your framework surely cannot be written for individuals, that there must be a standard that is upheld, and that also has to speak to what the AU intervention frameworks also have to say.
No. It's not about the individual. Like I said to you, we have different structures within SADC. You have the organ on politics. Within the organ on politics, there are various structures. And now the panel of elders being one of those diplomacy structures is the first line. That hence we want to send the panel of elders now to come back and inform the heads of state or inform the summit when we meet upon their return.
Are you concerned that what is happening in Madagascar has the potential of sowing regional instability?
Are you referring to the spillover?
Yes.
It has that potential. I mean, if you remember the Arab Spring, and that has always been my concern when it started, that what you see in Madagascar, I will not be surprised if you see it spilling over to other countries, particularly the island states. I will not be surprised.
So then what would be the plan when, I know you say the panel or of elders or the esteemed members of SADC will go ahead on a fact-finding mission, if that's what it is, but I would imagine speed is of the essence if you have what you see now as being interpreted as a military coup underway. Surely there must be swiftness in the approach.
Tsepiso, I fully agree with you, and hence we are meeting. And if it was according to me, I would have sent the panel of elders today, but there are certain processes that needs to be followed. You can't only send the panel of elders. I mean, I would have sent them yesterday. But you first have to assess the security situation. Those are the former heads of state. Those are elder people. So you can't just send them like you are sending troops into the battleground. You first have to assess and make sure the situation allow them to be on the ground. So this is what we are busy with now.
Will there be civic engagement in these meetings that are set to take place? And I know you can't say at this very moment whom or what, but will there be civic engagement while also dealing with things at a political and military level?
Yeah, look, I think we will send various role players with the panel of elders, but the panel of elders will guide. And as the situation unfolds when they are on the ground, they will guide us on what we need. If they are there and there is certain expertise that is needed, that expertise will be sent to Madagascar.
All right. Thank you very much.
I can't rule that out.
Thank you very much for speaking to us, and we do hope to speak to you again on the latest. Professor Telezani, Professor Ishmael Telezani is the Director, Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Affairs at the SADC Secretariat, speaking to us about what is happening in Madagascar. It brings the time to 27 minutes past 9.
Let the good times roll. From the 10th of October, make a note. Channel Africa is stepping into a brand new era with the launch of our upgraded website and app. It's easy, fresh, and always on your fingertips. Wherever you are in the world, Africa's voice is just a click away. The future of Channel Africa goes live from the 10th of October. Don't miss the moments. Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Germane.
I've witnessed something fresh, something exciting, and something very inspirational from the president of the country, William Ruto. Whenever athletes are performing to their best level, he always comes on board to reward those athletes, be it football, be it athletics, and not leaving it up to the sport ministry.
The president realizes that sports is a business, and for that reason, he also reduces the number of people who are jobless, because sports now is such a serious business, and for that reason, commercialization of sports is a major way of improving or increasing employment opportunities for the young people, and that is why the president has been very persistent in trying as much as possible to inspire more sports personalities to reduce the baggage of the people who are struggling to get job opportunities in the country among the young people.
Francis F.M. Mutegi, our correspondent from East Africa in Nairobi, Kenya.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
And we continue with what's happening in and around the continent. Tensions between university lecturers and federal government in Nigeria have reached a boiling point. The Academic Staff Union of Universities is standing firm after officials warned that educators who continue with their strike could face the no work, no pay policy. Lecturers, however, say they won't be intimidated, insisting that their demands for better funding, fair wages and improved working conditions remain non-negotiable. The standoff has once again disrupted academic calendars and heightened concerns over the state of higher education in Africa's most populous nation. We speak now to Professor Chris Piwuna to find out the latest. He is ASU president. Professor, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Perhaps we should just first start with the context of this situation, how it came about, and if you believe it has snowballed into something that is unmanageable.
Well, thank you very much for having us on this program. I don't think it's unmanageable. If the government is serious, they can manage it. We've just made our case to them. Nigerian universities have suffered chronic underfunding from the military era, where the military leaders at the time subscribed to the Bretton Woods Institute, where they introduced austerity measures. And as a result of that, we suffered chronic underfunding, because once the austerity measures came into place, government withdrew services. Government withdrew services from social responsibilities such as education, social welfare, water supply, transport, and all of that. And as a result of that, funding had continued to be a problem. And when the military left, we had them replaced by neoliberal warlords who had worked in these neoliberal institutions outside the country, and they had come to implement those policies. And so ideologically, our union continues to see actions of government from a very different perspective. We think that education is public good, and every Nigerian child deserves education from primary to university level. That is not how our government sees it. Government sees education as a commercial, a commodity, that need to be sold to its citizens. And so we've continued to have that battle with the Nigerian government. But added to that is that our welfare is one of the poorest in Africa today. What we earn is nothing compared to any West African or African average. And so we've continued to draw attention of government to it. Is their lack of attention that has led us to where we are today.
So before we get to the comparison with other countries, so am I to understand that this problem is not just at tertiary level? You're saying it's at both foundational phases and secondary levels, that it's a general problem of teaching and education in Nigeria?
Exactly. That's the point. In fact, we believe that if it were not for the principled stance of our union, our universities would have gone the way of primary and secondary schools in this country. But because we have stood firm against any attempt by government to commodify education, university education in particular, and to provide the infrastructure that is needed, library, provide money for research, and all other services that are needed to give us the idea of a university, it's because we've stood firm against, these attempts by our leaders. Otherwise, our universities would have gone the way of primary and public primary and secondary schools.
So give us an indication of how much a lecturer at a Nigerian university would earn on a monthly basis or even an annual salary. And you did mention that a lot of the benefits have been taken away, and you are making comparisons that they earn lower than others in other countries. Can you give us some of those countries that you're comparing to?
Well, Nigeria ranks much lower than even our West African brothers. For a professor in Nigeria, our earning is about $350 per month, equivalent of $250 per month. And I think we are only better than countries like Zimbabwe and two other countries. Our colleagues here in Ghana earn twice or almost 3 times what we earn, even as a professor. And that has affected mobility. We are unable to attract quality researchers, quality intellectuals into our system, because nobody would want to leave a place where you earn, 2, 3, 4 times what you're coming to do. Even for Nigerians that are outside the country, to come back home, it's impossible. They have responsibilities, they have children, they have schools fees to pay, they have social services to, get for their families. And so we are actually right down under. And our union is saying, thus far, no further. We're not taking it anymore. So
what specific reforms or funding mechanisms are you then suggesting? And is there a timeline for it?
Well, part of the reforms that we are suggesting to government, we've suggested to government sustainable ways of funding education. And we believe that if education is funded adequately, the issue of our welfare is part of funding of education. The issue of services such as libraries in the university, funding of research, and all of that will increase. But let me say one thing here. The Nigerian government, through an agency called the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, has made modest progress in ensuring that research is funded. We want more from government to support research, but there is some movement in that regard by the government of the day. I think just this year, there's been a substantial increase in the amount meant for research. But there are other reforms that we're suggesting. We think that there should be a stabilization fund that will be housed in the National Universities Commission, where infrastructural deficits can further be improved upon. We believe that there should be another fund called Restoration Fund, and that Restoration Fund can be used for specific areas within our universities. We have also suggested to government that they could tax GSM calls. They could get tax from other companies within the country to improve on what the percentage that companies pay as education tax in this country. So there are reforms that we have suggested to government, and we are discussing with them. Government thinks they are doing enough, and we're just trying to prove to them that their enough is not enough.
So there is a suggestion that some Nigerians are getting very tired of these repeated strikes because they see them as cyclical and they feel that they're exhausting. What is your response to that?
It's about leadership. It's about leadership. It's Nigerians that elect the leaders that pay little or no attention to education. Once we get leadership right, a leadership that values and prioritizes education, strikes will be a thing of the past. But for as long as we continue to elect leaders, Nigerians need to take responsibility for the strike itself. All of us Nigerians, I think we need to pay attention to the kind of leaders that we elect, that we vote for each time there is election. Ethnicity, religious sentiments must take the back seat, and our democratic institutions must also show some independence in ensuring that they conduct themselves well during elections. The National Electoral Commission, our judiciary system, these are institutions that can ensure that the right leadership emerges. And if we strengthen those institutions, certainly we will have better leaders and those that will pay serious attention to education. But I believe that we all as Nigerians have to take responsibility for this cyclical nature of strikes in this country. Our union, before we embark on any strike, I tell you, strike in our union is one of the most cumbersome exercises. The process is so tortuous and difficult. So before we get to this point, we would have met with government officials, we would have written them, we would have discussed with opinion leaders, traditional rulers, all those that have served in government. We visit them, we try to lobby them, tell them what the problem is. It is when all of that fails that we embark on a strike action.
Right.
People have asked us.
In short, what is next? What is next? How do you intend to resolve the impasse?
Well, the government has invited us to a meeting on Thursday. That's in 2 days' time. And we look forward to the meeting. Our union is always available. We are accessible. We are always willing to discuss with government. And we believe that if we go back to the table and something reasonable is brought on the table, we assume that we are reasonable people. And so if anything reasonable comes to us, we should be able to say, well, this makes sense. And so we can withdraw our action or suspend our action for further engagements, if government is truthful to us. So we believe that the table is the place to solve this problem. And we are ready to go back to the table to ensure that this problem is put behind us.
All right. Professor Chris Piuna, thank you very much for your time. Professor Piuna is the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria.
Annie Kalonji sur Channel Africa.
Comment est-ce que les militants et sympathisants du parti Les Transformateurs ont-ils réagi face à la condamnation de Succès Masra?
La condamnation de Succès Masra ne nous a pas surpris et les militants transformateurs ont été bouleversés et indignés étant donné que le verdict est un verdict lourd, illégal, injuste et donc face à la répression dans laquelle le peuple tchadien est confronté, les militants transformateurs se sont résignés de ne pouvoir pas sortir manifester. Et donc, c'est une situation totalement absurde pour un pays. Et aujourd'hui, nous célébrons le 11 août, fête de l'indépendance. On pensait que le verdict allait être plus ou moins clément, mais le verdict est sévère.
Annie Kalonji, tous les dimanches sur Mix Vibration.
The Midnight Snack, 12. to 3 a.m.
Our fitness coach, her name is Yvonne Dimakato Pasha. How to remain consistent with gyms, Dima, and I'm going to put you on the spot right now. As we are talking, I will send you my picture and I want you to tell me what you think I should work on. Because, you know, when I look at myself, Dima, I think I'm very handsome. I'm so good looking, like, oh my goodness. Like here at Channel Africa where I work, I think I'm one of the most good looking people ever. Like sometimes when I look at myself in the mirror, I never get used to how good I look. I'm just amazing.
You're okay with the way you're looking. You wish people could and now you want to put me on the spot.
do I need gym?
Yeah. I mean, if you can just consider eating healthy, cutting down a few foodstuffs such as junk.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa. It is now just about 15 minutes to 10 for our 2140 feature today. We speak to a woman who was born different and told she would never walk, talk or dream beyond her disability. But today, Masenyita Masunga stands very tall as a symbol of resilience, courage and triumph, from being a wheelchair-bound as a child to becoming a celebrated TV personality, businesswoman, motivational speaker and endurance athlete. Her journey is nothing short of extraordinary. Through her perseverance and unshakable faith, Masenyita turned every obstacle into an opportunity, breaking barriers not only for herself but for the countless others living with disabilities across South Africa. Tonight we celebrate her with the triumph of Masenyita Masunga, a story that reminds us that true strength lies not in what we can't do but in how fiercely we rise when life tries to hold us down. She joins us now to tell us about her journey and her work for her upcoming legacy lecture. A very good evening to you, Masenyita, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Tsepiso, and thank you for the opportunity.
So I'm very curious about this endurance athlete business. So what exactly have you been up to? What are you doing? So I can get motivated as well.
Okay, I would like to please humbly ask to correct you on something that I'm correcting almost everybody in South Africa. The word wheelchair bound is actually not allowed. Even though I've never used a wheelchair, but a person uses a wheelchair, they're not wheelchair bound, because a wheelchair is a tool for independence and movement. So it's there not to confine a person, but to make a person be able to do things. Even the word living with disability, it's not allowed by the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, which South Africa is a signatory for. But unfortunately, our government, they don't enforce some of the multilateral agreements that they sign, and we end up not knowing what is allowed and what is not allowed.
No, I thank you for that. I thank you for that,
Yes.
because even as I was reading it, something in me did say it just didn't feel right, because I do remember that that is not allowed. But I also appreciate you educating us on saying that we can't say people who are wheelchair bound, because in itself it further disempowers you, doesn't it? It almost puts you in that mold that you can't do anything beyond that. And I appreciate that. And while we're on that path, what else should we know as society that we continue doing that actually limits, that puts limits on people who are differently abled?
I think I always, as an inclusion advocate, and when I speak inclusion, I always say I am a black woman who happens to have a disability. So when I speak inclusion, I speak of it from different aspects. So first of all, if we can get to a point as a country and as a people where we realize that we are all human, and we speak of people with disabilities. I'm a person who happens to have a disability, so it's important for people to see my humanity before they can see my disability. Disability is part of my identity, like being black. It's part of my identity, like being a woman. It's part of my identity. So if we're going to mainstream, and that is where the challenge is, we've integrated, but we haven't began the inclusion aspect where we mainstream disability. I always say to people, as a media practitioner, as a speaker, as somebody who owns a sports brand and a makeup brand, I have a problem that people only think of me when it concerns disability. They never think of me as a human being who's in business, who has a life and a lifestyle. And that's where we must begin, particularly because of our past as a nation, where we've been dealing with discrimination all our lives. So now we are in a liberated nation, but because we have been taught to look at difference as inferior, we do what we didn't want to be done to us, we do it to other people.
You mentioned a very important thing, Masunuta. You're saying you're a black woman, and that your disability is part of your identity as well. Is it that much more difficult, particularly being a black woman? And I also want to look at what you just raised, because I thought about it. I'm sure there is a great deal of being patronized, that people only recognize your victories in line with somebody who is, who has disabilities, in the sense that it almost seems as if it's a greater achievement because you have those disabilities. Just speak to me about your thoughts on that.
I'm laughing because you have just summed up my life. When you speak about being patronized, it's more like, and those are some of the things that I speak about. Even when I speak of gender equality, I speak of the fact that as a black woman, already being a black woman, it's a disability on its own. before you get to the physical disability in this country, because there are so many impediments to being a black woman. And then you find that I talk about issues of GBV. I've never experienced GBV from an intimate relationship, but I experienced GBV constantly from other black women because they see you as being inferior, and that's where the patronizing, that's where the condescending comes in, where people even speak to you like you are a child. I speak of opportunities. People never consider opportunities for you, except about disability. So yes, it's much more harder to break through, and that's where the challenge is as an African, because that's how Africans globally we are treated, and that's why at the end of the day we are unable to penetrate certain levels globally, as a continent, because we, being an African, is some sort of a disability to the world. So I'm just saying to you, the disability, yes, I experience physically, but it goes to other areas, and it makes one's barriers even more. So I was saying to another woman today, when people are at a starting line of 0, I'm starting at -10. So by the time I get to the starting line, and people will always say, why did you guys come to us so late? And I'm saying, have you considered what I had
what
to
the
go
odds
get?
are against me?
Yes, for me to get to this point.
Masengeta, you mentioned something very important, that our government does not implement and ensure the pushing of that implementation when it comes to multilateral protocols, particularly for people with disabilities. I think I saw there was a summit, an international summit about that recently, and there is going to be a forum for the G20. What should world leaders be talking about, particularly South Africa, that is going to steward that conversation? What should they take upon themselves as a commitment?
It's that issue that I'm saying, Tsepiso, where we don't deal with disability as a separate issue. We deal with disability within the inclusion, because before I have a disability, I'm a South African. I'm a human being. So if we're going to separate disability from all the socio-economic issues, it becomes a problem, because we have just integrated, but we have been included disability. You look at, I always say, I'm a media practitioner. I've never done a show that is exclusively about disability, because I'm saying I'm a social being and I deal with social issues And that's where we should start. And the issue of solidarity. One of the themes of G20 is solidarity. There's solidarity for everybody in this country except for people with disabilities or except for issues with disability. And that's where the exclusion also come with even the media. They talk about other things when there are commemorations of other things when
Masita, have we lost you?
disability issues as social issues that are part of society. And that's where we need to begin as a government, that all sectors, they need to incorporate people with disability, not from a disability point, but from an inclusion and accessibility point.
Such a pity we've run out of time, Asangita, but I hope we do get to speak to you again. I'm learning so much, especially, as you say, around how we should be thinking about speaking with people with disabilities. And I really appreciate that. But you are so inspiring, as you're saying, that you have achieved so much, but you are starting 10 points behind even people who are starting at a very low point. And I appreciate you speaking to us, and we hope to speak to you more again about your legacy lecture to hear what it's about. Masingita Masunga is an established, as you heard, a media practitioner, business person, and she is also a motivational speaker. She was speaking to us about a number of issues ahead of her legacy lecture. And that's where we ended for Africa World Hour. Shayla Ndukumana is coming up next, and on African Diaries today she'll be speaking to Kathy Mpirima, NLP practitioner, on the expression of silent traumas on our bodies. So that's coming up now. Do enjoy listening. From us, it's good night.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour